I felt ashamed in my old dress, until a billionaire changed my life with a single dance. The day everything fell apart started with rips and tears both in my dress and in my heart. An old silk gown I wore to graduation, once sparkling with hope, now hung limply on my frame, faded, and frayed from years trapped in the back of my closet. It whispered memories of better days, nights filled with laughter and the promise of love. Now, it was a ghost, a reminder of all I had lost. The charity gala loomed large, lights flashing, laughter spilling like champagne over polished floors. I felt small, overwhelmed by the beauty around me. The air buzzed with excitement, but I stood frozen, tears pricking the corners of my eyes. Did anyone see me standing there? My heart raced as I noticed the sharp, judgmental stares from perfectly dressed strangers. I'd never felt so invisible. A dark cloud of shame wrapped me tight. Then, like a moth drawn to a flame, he entered. A big man, tall and confident, with an aura that made the room hush. I couldn't help but catch my breath, every heartbeat a drumroll in my chest. His eyes glinted like the diamonds that adorned the wealth around us. And then came the invitation. A simple handshake turned into a pull, leading me into the spotlight. My trembling hand struggled to accept his, but he smiled, and in that moment, everything changed. The music swelled around us, thick and enchanting, wrapping us in a heartbeat melody. I was swept off my feet, literally and metaphorically. We twirled, the world around us blurring into a haze of lights and laughter. I forgot my old dress. I forgot the stares. In his arms, I felt alive, new. But behind the charm, there was a flicker of something darker in his eyes, a secret that seemed to whisper just beneath the beat of the music. That my breath caught as we danced, a pull of electricity binding us. Every spin ignited a hope I thought had long been extinguished. But the ghosts of my past trailed behind, shadows looming, threatening to ruin my moment. With each turn, I could hear words echoing in my mind, "You're not enough." And then, an unexpected twist, he leaned in close, and I caught a scent of danger mixing with his expensive cologne. "There's something you need to know," he murmured, his breath warm against my ear. The music faded, the laughter dimmed. The world shrunk to just us, and my heart raced, fear intertwining with desire. What could he possibly reveal? I didn't want to let go. I didn't want to know. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, every part of me screaming to jump, to leap into this mystery. But what if I fell? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The moment he leaned in, the warmth of his breath enveloped me, yet an icy dread crawled up my spine. My body rigid, I fought the urge to pull away, instead holding onto him with a desperate grip, praying the moment would last forever, however fleetingly. "What do you need to tell me?" I finally managed, my voice a breathless whisper, each word coated in an anxious blend of curiosity and fear. He hesitated, his gaze piercing yet troubled. The flickering candlelight danced over his chiseled features, casting wild shadows that played tricks on my mind. "There are things about my life that you don't know. Things I haven't shared with anyone." His words hung in the air, precious and dangerous like glass, teetering on the brink of shattering. Just then, a group of laughing women, bedecked with pearls and glittering gowns, brushed past us, breaking the spell. Their laughter echoed mockingly. I felt a pang of inadequacy hit me square in the chest. What could I possibly mean to him? A woman in an old dress, hidden away among diamonds and silk, but he had looked at me as though he saw something the others couldn't, something valuable. I yearned to believe it, even if a part of me fought against that hope. As confusion wrestled within me, he pulled back slightly, his expression clouded with something unrecognizable, a cocktail of guilt and urgency. "Meet me in the garden," he said, the hint of an order wrapped in a plea. He took a step back, his eyes locking onto mine, and before I could respond, he blended back into the crowd as if he had never existed. My heart sank in his absence, the connection felt too strong for it to simply dissipate. The evening dragged on, a parade of polite conversations and hollow smiles. My mind was a storm, pulses of doubt clashing against flickers of hope. I excused myself from a conversation about charity auctions, murmuring an apology. The night felt like a masquerade where I wore a mask of elegance, but inside, I was just a frightened girl in a dress stitched with memories. Finally, I slipped outside, the cool night air kissing my cheeks, soothing the heat of my embarrassment. The garden lay before me, a sanctuary cloaked in shadows. My eyes searched, heart pounding, every rustle in the foliage sent shivers of anticipation through me. What would he tell me? What could possibly be so important that he had to drag me away from the gala-esque glimmer? My thoughts raced, memories flashing of my mother's gentle smile, the wisdom infused in her words about love, trust, and secrets. We never had much, but she always showed me the beauty of being raw and real. Perhaps I was still tethered to those values, unable to fully embrace the possibility of a world that seemed so extravagant and far removed from my own, and then I saw him standing between the moonlit rose bushes, his tall figure a silhouette against the radiant blooms. My breath hitched. "You came," he said, his voice low, almost tremulous with relief, as though I was a wish he had dared to hope for. "I don't even know why I'm here," I admitted, stepping closer, the scent of fresh petals mingling with something acrid in the air, a reminder of the gravity of the moment. "You said you had something important to discuss." He reached for me, fingers brushing my arm, sending surges of electricity through my skin. "I want to tell you who I really am," he began, his eyes widening as if he were on the precipice of a cliff as well. "I don't just come from wealth," but before he could finish, a sharp sound interrupted us, a loud crash followed by frantic voices. My heart raced as I turned to see a server had toppled an entire tray of crystal goblets, their shattering an explosion of chaos. The laughter from the gala abruptly transformed into a cacophony of startled gasps that we both flinched, quickly turning our focus back to each other, but in that split second, the magic had dimmed. His expression was strained, as if a sudden weight had crushed the air between us. I could sense a battle raging within him. "Perhaps never mind," he said, pulling his hand back, his resolve wavering. "I need to go." His words sliced through me, sharper than the snapped glass shards scattered nearby. "Wait!" I called, but the urgency in his voice had already begun to retreat into the shadows. "Please, don't go." My heart sank as he took a step back, a door closing not just on our moment, but on whatever had sparked between us, and in that simply tragic instant, my entire world shifted again. The heaviness of unspoken truths loomed between us, mixing with the echoes of laughter and shattered hopes, and as he turned away, the darkness swept in. Behind him, the twinkling lights of the gala seemed like cruel stars, mocking my fragility, blurring memories of sparkle dances and whispered secrets. As the garden air grew heavy with tension, I believed that perhaps I had let go of yet another fleeting chance for happiness as the truth slipped further away, lost in the chaos of shattered glass. I felt my heart plunge into uncertainty, a throbbing ache filling the silence he left behind, yet, just as despair threatened to overtake me entirely, I reached up to my throat, brushing the delicate locket my mother had given me before she passed. Suddenly, I felt a surge of warmth, a flicker of strength that reminded me that I was meant for more than this moment of shame and unknowing. As I turned to leave the garden, ready to retreat into the safety of familiar sorrow, the ground beneath me seemed to shift. A whispered voice echoed in the recesses of my mind, "You are enough, even in your brokenness." But the sound was drowned by footsteps approaching from behind, perhaps too late to mend the pieces that had just begun to crack. Reeling, I turned, the veil of darkness lifting just enough for that flicker of hope to shine through, the possibility that in this rich tapestry of life, secrets might still lead to something beautiful, if only I could dare to uncover them. But suddenly, a chilling realization sent a shiver down my spine. What if the secrets he held could shatter not just our moment, but my very world? The night air felt heavier than before, swimming with the scent of blooming roses and despair that clung to me like a dense fog. I took a step back, knees quaking as the reality of his retreat settled in. My heart ached, an unbearable heaviness threatening to drown me as the image of his haunted eyes lingered in my thoughts. "Why did you have to come here?" I murmured to the void, desperate to grasp answers that slipped through my fingers like the very shadows pooling around me. The laughter and music from the gala felt like an insufferable reminder of everything I was not. Before I could spiral further, I heard soft footsteps on the gravel path. A figure approached from the shadows, moving with an elegance that belied the chaos of the evening. I squinted, half hoping it was him, but instead, a woman appeared, her face radiating warmth that contrasted sharply with my frostbitten heart. "Are you all right, dear?" she asked, concern softening her features as she stepped closer. She wore a long silk dress, but it was her genuine presence that caught me off guard. I was waiting for someone," I replied, unable to mask the tremor in my voice. The tears I had held at bay threatened to spill, the gravity of my pain almost unbearable. Her gaze softened, and without waiting for further assurance, she stepped forward, a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Sometimes, those we wish to see are the very ones who need to find themselves. But you, my dear, are deserving of kindness. No matter the situation." I blinked, surprised by her insight. In a world filled with judgment and jealousy, her kindness felt like an oasis in a parched desert. "I don't even belong here," I confessed, emotion spilling from my lips as if the universe had chosen this moment to unravel the knots that bound me. "I feel invisible among all of them." Her eyes flickered with understanding, the corners of her mouth lifting slightly. "You are not invisible, sweet girl. You shine with your own light, even if it feels dim compared to others. You have value beyond what a dress can represent." The weight of her words settled over me like a warm blanket, and for the first time that night, a flicker of hope stirred within my chest. I was more than just an old dress, perhaps I was allowed to be seen. "Thank you," I whispered, swallowing the lump in my throat as I brushed away the errant tears, feeling a small glimmer of solace. Before I could respond further, the sound of hurried voices sliced through the calm. The riche, boisterous crowd no longer simply indulged in casual chatter, it had transformed into a swarm of banking and legal jargon laced with alarm. I glanced around, confusion mixing with concern. "Have you heard?" the woman murmured, her voice low but tinged with urgency. "There was a sudden financial incident. Some say it might touch our hostess family. They seem frantic." I turned, eyes wide, searching for familiarity in the chaos, only to spot the man from earlier, his handsome face twisted with anxiety as he spoke to a group of bewildered guests. The elegant facade of the evening began to buckle, whispers formulated into storm clouds, gathering around him like dark shadows. The woman squeezed my shoulder, grounding me amidst the storm. "Stay strong. Sometimes, in moments of chaos, connections are forged more than in tranquil times." As she slipped away, I felt an undeniable draw toward him. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but the weight of concern propelled me forward. Fate was unpredictable, winding paths were often obscure, and in this moment I couldn't simply let him face this alone. That I approached, heart hammering against my chest like a wild bird desperate for freedom. "Is everything all right?" I asked as I neared him. Those deep-set pools of confusion met my hesitant gaze, and for a brief moment, it felt as though time held its breath. "Not quite," he replied, a shadow washing over his features as he raked his fingers through his tousled hair, the panic and urgency palpable in his tone. "There are things I didn't want to burden you with tonight. Details of my family's reputation." His words cut like glass, tearing through the thin layer of hope I had managed to gather. I took a step closer, the need to understand outweighing the instinct to retreat. "What do you mean?" "There's trouble," he said, glancing around, his voice laced with fear. "A potential scandal if I can't contain this. They're accusing my family of financial improprieties, and if it goes public, it could ruin everything." "Everything?" I echoed, thoughts spinning as pieces fell into place like an intricate jigsaw puzzle coming together. "What about your dreams, your life?" He inhaled sharply, despair etched in every line of his face. Exactly. It's not just money, it's legacy, it's who I am. And if this explodes, I will have lost it all, including what little I was trying to build. With his words caught in his throat, laden with a hidden weight that threatened to suffocate not only him but me as well. The chill returned, and I felt the world around us dim. My heart raced, feeling a visceral connection to his turmoil. I can help, I blurted out, before I could think twice. Really, just let me know how. But he gestured helplessly, thoughts spiraling as he shook his head. You don't understand, it's complicated. You deserve better than to get tangled in this. As his eyes bore into mine, an undeniable panic reflected there, and I couldn't swallow the ache forming in my throat. Each breath felt heavier than the last, the stakes climbing higher with each heartbeat. Behind us, the gala continued, oblivious to our unraveling world. As my grip on hope began to fray, I realized that I might have just opened the door to an unthinkable realm of conflict and complication, and then the weight of a revelation crashed upon me with dizzying intensity. In seeking the warmth of one heart, I had inadvertently wandered into a storm so vast it threatened to consume us both. But in that moment, as fleeting clarity washed over me, I understood perhaps the truth that lay ahead would redefine us both, for better or worse. As I faced the man I had unknowingly hoped would lead me to a brighter dawn, a sense of foreboding whispered that some secrets were meant to remain hidden. Yet, somehow intertwined in this darkening tale, I felt a spark igniting a yearning I could not quite name, a heart-pounding realization that love always comes with its own storm. The tremors of uncertainty lingered in the air as his gaze flickered between desperation and doubt. I felt the swell of emotions within me, threatening to pour forth like a river breaking through a dam. The realization of his despair alongside mine sent shockwaves through my core, an electric connection that transcended the chaos surrounding us. I deserve better. I echoed, the heat of defiance igniting in my chest. Why does it feel like I'm the one tangled in heartbreak here, too? You don't have to shoulder this alone. We're facing it together, right? For a moment, silence enveloped us. He seemed torn, unable to resist the dying embers of hope that I dared to ignite. His hardened exterior began to soften, revealing vulnerability he was clearly uncomfortable showing. You don't know what you're getting into, he warned, voice barely above a whisper, weighed down by doubts. This will change everything for you. But what if this is exactly what I need? I shot back, reckless courage coursing through me. I've spent too long feeling invisible. I want to matter, even if just for a moment. The weight of my words hung between us, thick with unspoken fears and dreams. Just then, an unexpected laughter erupted from within the dining hall, as guests toasted to fortunes and futures yet unknown. It felt like a cruel mockery against the turmoil we were navigating, reminding us of the weighty divide between their glimmer and our growing entanglement of heartache. Maybe I need to be tangled, I whispered as the words unraveled between us, my heart on the line. Maybe we both do. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw fragments of his soul reflected in those turbulent depths. Slowly, a tentative smile broke through the shadows clouding his features. Perhaps you're right. A rush of warmth surged within me as he reached out, his fingers brushing against mine, an electric touch sparking instant connection, the kind that hummed with promise and danger all at once. But before I could revel in it, reality crashed in around us with another wave of urgency. Listen, he began, his voice hushed but urgent. I have to go. There are things I need to take care of. Backlit by the lights of the gala, his silhouette became more resolute. No. I protested, my heart racing with the thought of being left behind, indeed invisible again. You can't face this alone. Whatever this is, we need to confront it together. The moment stretched taut, a fragile wire ready to snap. But as uncertainty dulled his expression, he shook his head in resignation, bringing forth an oppressive sense of helplessness within me. You don't understand. This isn't just the scandal, there are forces at play, people in my family who would never let go of the past. Then let us fight back, I urged, determination drowning out fear. This isn't just about you anymore. We have a chance to stand against them. His brow furrowed deeper, wrestling with my words as if they were a riddle he couldn't solve, but beneath it all I sensed his desire to let me in to share this burden, to cultivate a connection that could stand against the storm. Before either of us could speak again, the chaotic swell of voices erupted from the gala, sharper this time, filled with urgency that cracked through the walls of uncertainty. Something had shifted. I glanced behind to see a security team entering, buttons fastened on their jackets, faces set in grim determination as they scanned the crowd. Panic surged within me as I instinctively reached for him, my pulse quickening. "We can't be seen together," he said quickly, stepping back, eyes darting for an escape. "If they see you with me it could put you in danger." "Danger how?" But I already felt the foundation of my world shaking, pieces I thought I understood dissolving around us. I grasped his hand, rosy warmth slipping through my fingers. "We'll figure this out," he said, despite the wavering notes in his tone. But I could see it then in his eyes, a flicker of resolve combated by fierce protective instincts. As he turned to leave, a voice surged from the distance, a commanding presence cutting through the tension. "There you are. We've been looking for you." I froze, recognition flooding through me as a figure meticulously dressed in a tailored suit strode toward us. The light caught his slick back hair and polished shoes as he approached with an air of entitlement, his lips curving into a calculating smile. Just behind him, a group of well-coiffed socialites hovered, each wearing masks of curiosity paired with malicious intrigue. "Ah, Ralph, what a surprise to find you here. Everyone was wondering if you'd still be part of this spectacle," the man said, dripping with mock concern, his eyes narrowing as they lingered on me. "And who is this? Your latest distraction, perhaps?" Ralph's expression darkened, tension prickling the air. My heart raced as embarrassment flooded me, realizing I had unwittingly stepped into a battle of reputations, caught in the web of his family's turmoil. I caught Ralph's eye. He was frozen, watching the confrontation unfold, the flawed hands of fate tightening around us. "I don't need your judgment, Marcus," he replied, a steely edge to his voice. "This isn't a game. Come now, stop pretending it doesn't concern you." Marcus strafed closer, his interest honing sharply on me. "Everyone has their price, don't they? It's simply a matter of recognizing worth." Anger ignited within me, but darkness surrounded us like a shroud, pressing in on my words before they could take flight. I could see it then in Ralph's eyes, the recognition of a fight that wasn't just his anymore, but ours. With that moment pregnant with unresolved tension, a bitter realization crashed over me. Perhaps the very connections I had yearned for were intertwined with complexities I simply could not fathom. As Marcus' smirk deepened and the whispers of discontent swirled, I felt the walls closing in, trapped in a game I didn't know I had signed up for, caught between an impending storm and the tantalizing lure of love amid chaos. But just as I thought despair had laid claim to my heart, a glint of defiance surged within me, a flicker of strength that meant I would not yield. I grasped Ralph's hand again, ready to face whatever storm came next. In that moment, uncertainty clung to us tightly, and yet beneath the weight of impending disaster was a shared understanding, a bond forged by fear, hope, and the inevitable dance with destiny itself. The din of the gala echoed around us, a cacophony of laughter and clinking glasses that felt worlds away from the tension coiling like a snake between Marcus and Ralph. The spotlight suddenly felt oppressive, a glaring reminder of all we stood to lose in an instant. I could see Ralph's clenched jaw and furrowed brows as he stood his ground against Marcus, but self-preservation hung thick in the air, warning that each second we lingered was a risk we couldn't afford. "Ralph, please," I whispered, tugging gently on his hand, needing him to refocus. "Don't let him get in your head. This is your life." The flicker of uncertainty in his eyes shifted to a glimmer of promise, reflective of the resolve brewing within me. I could feel my heart thrumming with a powerful mixture of fear and determination. "Together," I urged, as though the word alone could arm us against the looming storm. "What do you plan to do?" Marcus taunted, his grin widening at our public display of solidarity. The air crackled as multiple pairs of eyes began to settle on us, interest morphing into something more sinister. You really think you can change this? Who do you think you are? Someone who won tea back down, I said, surprising even myself. The room fell momentarily silent as if the universe was holding its breath, and Marcus's expression twisted between amusement and annoyance. But now wasn't the time for bravado. Dread pooled in my stomach like stones dropped in water, and I steeled my gaze, knowing we were pushing against mighty tides. I remembered how invisible I had felt before and used, unvalued, and that resolve drove me forward now. I'd face down the shadows of my own life, and I wouldn't allow anyone, even Marcus, to diminish my worth, or Ralph S. for that matter. Walk away, Marcus, Ralph finally said, voice firm, attempting to shield me from the storm brewing within. This isn't worth it. But Marcus wasn't willing to disengage. Walk away. You've got to be joking. Your little love adventure couldn't be more notorious if I wanted it to be. My curiosity will get the best of me. He stepped closer, leaning just enough into Ralph's space. Just remember, it's a game of survival when our family gets involved. You think they care about who you love or the mess you've made? You think they value this moment? Look at the reality you've built, it's all lies, Ralph. My heart raced as I heard the disdain threaded through his words. I could feel Ralph's frustration boiling over, drawn tight like a bowstring, and I reached out with a gentle touch, hoping to anchor him. You are not the sum of your family's expectations, I whispered, pouring all my faith into those few words. You're more than that. Ralph turned to me, and I could see something spark in his eyes, an emotion fierce enough to challenge the very fabric of the world closing in on us. Thanks, he murmured, a weight lifting a fraction of an inch, but it was still tethered by the judgment lingering just beyond us. Marcus rolled his eyes dismissively, but as revelers continued swirling around us, I noticed one woman detaching from the crowd, a slight figure cloaked in modest elegance, her cheeks flushed from laughter. With surprising grace, she approached our little battlefield, casting a curious glance at Marcus. Everything okay here? She inquired, her voice warm and inviting. Her gaze landed on me, and for a brief moment, I saw recognition cross her features like a shadow and was reminded that kindness can wield its own strength in dark places. Just a friendly chat, Marcus replied with feigned indifference, shooting daggers at Ralph. But the woman's presence diffused some looming tension. I'm Lila, she offered, extending her hand to me first and then to Ralph, unaware of the chaos circling us like wolves. I've been watching from afar, and I couldn't help but feel like I could sense a storm brewing over here. Are you all right? The simple act of reaching out flooded me with warmth, filling the gaps that fear had carved in my heart. We're trying to manage, I confessed, my voice steadier than I felt. Just caught in a debate. She nodded quizzically, her expression sharp with understanding. I've seen Marcus play his games before. They're not worth the trouble. Ralph glanced at me and then back to Lila, and there was a brief unspoken gratitude and acknowledgement that we weren't alone. I saw the tension in his shoulders ease slightly, a minor victory amidst a backdrop of threats. Are you sure the best thing to do is to ignore him? He asked Lila, a hint of vulnerability creeping into his otherwise composed demeanor. The best thing to do is to rise above it, she encouraged gently. You're in charge of your own narrative, not him. Just remember your worth. And in that fleeting moment, as Lila took a step back to rejoin the lively camaraderie of the gala, her act of kindness hanging like a glimmer of hope, something shifted within Ralph. His shoulders squared, and I could feel the resolve radiating from him. But before we could exhale, a shrill voice sliced through the thick air, dragging us back to our precarious reality. Ralph! We're looking for you. A family member stepped into our immediate space, a woman in designer attire, her expression stormy. Ralph's body stiffened, and the reminder of his family loomed over us like a dark cloud. Now you've really done it, Marcus taunted, satisfaction lighting his features. Let us see how you get out of this one. As Ralph turned his focus towards the approaching figure, panic clawed at me. Something in the air felt heavy, mingling a dread that left a bitter aftertaste. The stakes had risen, our moment of hope had slipped into a tidal wave of uncertainty. What did they want? Would they pull Ralph back into the darkness of his family's shame? I cupped his hand tighter, a shared quiet plea, but Ralph looked at me then, a stormy blend of hesitation and determination dancing in those deep eyes. Whatever happens next, I promise I won't let them control who we are. We'll face this, he vowed, but before I could respond, the woman stepped closer, and the tightening of fate suddenly felt insurmountable. A gasp escaped my lips, the whirlwind threatening to rip us apart just as the first real flicker of hope sparked to life. And in that bittersweet moment, I realized, vulnerability had its price. And as the chaos surged closer, I was left teetering on the edge of fear and strength, already wondering if we could truly embrace the chance to conquer it together. The world around me pulsed with the rhythm of laughter and swirling gowns, but my focus was fixated on the dark shadows creeping back into Ralph's gaze. The woman from his family had hardly registered on me, but the intensity emanating from her was enough to send my heart racing. I took a step closer to Ralph, hoping against hope that my presence would be a grounding force. "Ralph!" She beckoned, her voice slicing through the celebratory din like a knife. "Mother is furious, we need to go now." I watched as Ralph's expression oscillated between dread and defiance. "I'm not going anywhere," he snapped, the unexpected sharpness of his reply surprising even me. "I'm done being her puppet." His family member, a woman I recognized but couldn't name, narrowed her eyes at him, apparently taken aback by his rebellion. "You think this is a game?" She shot back, her tone a venomous mix of disbelief and fury. "This is about family, it's about your future." "Then maybe it's time to redefine my future," Ralph retorted, his voice louder now, the anger flickering beneath like a flame ready to ignite. The surrounding guests stared, their eyes flitting between us like moths drawn to a flame, but I sensed unease rather than intrigue. From the corner of my eye, I could see Marcus smirking, the embodiment of chaos thriving on the confrontation unfolding in front of us. For a moment, I felt the world close in, the cacophony of the gala fading, leaving only the weight of expectations and fears hanging in the air. "Ralph, please," I implored softly, inching closer and squeezing his hand again. "You don't have to fight them here. We'll figure this out." His gaze softened for a moment, and I could see he was wrestling with something deeper than just defiance. He was wrestling with the ghosts of his past years of feeling trapped, silenced, burdened by an identity that did not belong to him. Yet, my words seemed to act like a bomb, calming some of the rising storm within him. "That's hardly the point," the woman snapped, stepping even closer, her voice dripping with disdain. "Do you think your little rebellion will change their minds? You've embarrassed this family enough as it is." "Maybe I want to embarrass them," Ralph shot back, flames dancing in his dark eyes. "Living in their shadow has cost me too much already." "Ralph, don't," I started, but then the acute pain of my own fears gripped me. If he pushed too far, he could lose everything, not just his family but any safety net he held onto. Suddenly, Lila reappeared from the crowd, her serene presence illuminating the suffocating tension around us like a lighthouse amidst a storm. "I had a feeling I would find you," she stated calmly, looking at Ralph with an understanding that took me by surprise. It was as if she could see straight through to the heart of the struggle. "We need to leave before this escalates." Ralph shook his head, desperation seeping into his voice. "It's never going to stop unless I stand my ground now. I'm not running from it anymore." The family member snorted, mocking him. "And what do you think that even means? You're an embarrassment to this family, Ralph. A disgrace." At her words, a heavy silence fell upon the gathering, tightening around us like a noose. My heart pounded. I could feel the air thicken with the weight of unspoken expectations, oppressive and suffocating. This was not just about Ralph, it was about so much more, the very essence of who he was. "Ralph, you know your worth isn't tied to their perception of you," I whispered, the urgency of my plea drawing his eyes back to mine. In that moment, everything around us faded, and it was just us against this maelstrom, but just as he seemed on the cusp of clarity, the family member pressed on. "You think this relationship will protect you?" They'll find a way to ruin it, just like they've ruined everything else you've touched. Do you really think they care about my happiness? Ralph said, voice quaking with anguish. The raw pain in his words struck me like a bolt of lightning, a powerful reminder of how intertwined our lives had become amidst this chaos. That I looked at him, determined to be the lifeline he needed. We will find our way through this together. It's not about them, it's about us. Trust me, Ralph. For a heartbeat, it felt like the world paused, offering me a brief moment of hope, the kind that sparkles like stars against the deepest of nights. But before he could respond, the family member made a heavy move forward, her eyes sparking with fury. And what about when they cut you off? When they disown you? She hurled, a feral edge to her voice. Who will be there for you then? Each word landed like a stone in my stomach. The haunting thought of Ralph being left entirely alone twisted like a knife in my chest. The stakes were growing higher, the pressure mounting. We had to do something, but time was slipping through our fingers. Suddenly, a low hum of conversation nearby drew our attention. I turned, my breath catching in my throat. A towering figure emerged from the shadows, an older gentleman dressed in a tailored suit, his eyes sharp and knowing. He paused, surveying the scene, and I noticed something almost magnetic about him, a quiet strength radiating off of him, yet there was something familiar about his posture, something laced with authority and unyielding command. Is there a problem here? He asked, his deep voice cutting through the tension like a warm knife through cold butter. All eyes turned to him, sharp and questioning. The woman's bluster faltered, a flicker of hesitation crossing her face. Her defiance seemed to wither under the weight of his presence, and it subtly shifted dynamics in the room. Ralph and I exchanged a glance, a mix of confusion and hope igniting in the space between us. Who are you? She stammered, confusion shadowing her features as the older man stepped closer. The crowd murmured, eyes darting between the man and the sparks of conflict that swirled around us. My heart raced. I couldn't shake the feeling that this figure was somehow connected, a crucial piece of the puzzle that could either save Ralph or send him spiraling further away from who he wanted to be. Ralph took a deep breath, determination seeping back into his posture. That's what I'm trying to find out, he replied, his voice steady as he met the stranger's gaze. The sense of urgency built around us, and I couldn't help but wonder just what kind of revelation was about to unfold. Would this man be an ally, or would he throw us deeper into the fray? The energy in the room shifted as we stood on the brink of something extraordinary. As hope danced alongside fear, I felt the chilling truth settle in. This moment would change everything. The air thickened with anticipation as the man stepped closer, the echo of his polished shoes carving through the tension that had suffocated us moments before. The woman's bravado seemed to shrink, her confidence faltering like a candle flickering against the wind. I believe you're causing a scene that is quite unnecessary, he said, his voice resonating with calm authority. And for what? To force a son into submission under the guise of family duty? His gaze swept across the crowd, holding their attention captive. Who do you think you are to interfere? The woman shot back, her disdain bubbling to the surface as she took a step closer. You don't know anything about this family. I know enough, he replied, his tone unwavering. To see where fear has taken root and grown into something toxic. He turned to Ralph, his eyes softening as they bore witness to the silent storm within. And I know how hard it is to redefine oneself when shackled by expectation. The weight of his words settled around us like a warm blanket, offering solace amid the chaos. I looked at Ralph, and for the first time that night, I saw a flicker of hope igniting in his stormy eyes, as though the flickers of doubt were finally being overshadowed by a glimmer of possibility. Who are you? Ralph asked, the question reverberating through the crowd. The man straightened, the fabric of his suit stretching across his shoulders as he exuded an air of importance. My name is Thomas Eldridge. A friend of the family, and a witness to the change that must happen. Ralph's eyebrows creased in confusion. It was evident he was grappling with the sudden shift in dynamics. The woman scoffed, fury bubbling in her throat. What do you know? You have no idea what's at stake here. I know enough to see that life is too short to be lived in the shadows of others, Thomas replied firmly, his gaze sharp, unyielding. Ralph has a right to be free to be himself just as you have a right to your own choices. The tension simmered but didn't dissolve, everyone waiting for the next move. My heart raced as I took a step closer to Ralph, feeling the warmth of his body, grounding myself in his presence. Perhaps it's time to break the cycle, Thomas continued, unwavering as he measured the family member's reaction. To pave a path of support rather than control. Support? She hissed, fury flaring in her voice as though he had spat on the legacy they upheld. You're here to support this insolence. You'll be the one digging his grave. A palpable silence enveloped us, and I felt the weight of unease pressing down harder than before. The fear of losing everything loomed just beyond the edges of my mind, gnawing like an insatiable beast. I'd rather be buried in my own worth than wear the mask of shame, Ralph interjected, voice steadying as he shook off the weight of expectations. I want to let them dictate my life. Thomas nodded, an approving smile gracing his lips. A worthy declaration, Ralph. Your strength is not defined by their judgment, but by your own choices. The flicker of hope became a soft flame as I glanced at Ralph, whose posture straightened, his spirit momentarily unshackled from the binds of familial pressure. Ralph, please, think about this, the woman stammered, desperation creeping into her voice. What kind of future do you think this will bring you? It's chaos. Maybe chaos is the only way to create the life I need, Ralph responded, his voice echoing triumphantly. But then, just as the atmosphere lightened with his words, a new realization flooded through me. What if this moment would introduce consequences far beyond any of us anticipated? A world unraveling, dangers rearing their ugly heads in the light of this new rebellion. Suddenly, a commotion broke through the gala once more, a stirring whisper weaving through the crowd. The energy shifted, something sinister loomed around us, pouring in like thick fog. In that disruptive moment, another figure emerged, a dim shadow that lingered just outside the reach of the glimmering chandeliers. I strained to make out the features, but the darkness concealed their face. There was something deeply unsettling about this interruption, an omen that demanded our attention. Ralph, I whispered, my voice trembling. Do you feel that? Something's wrong. Before he could respond, the shadowy figure drew closer, and the room collectively held its breath. The whispers turned to gasps as the figure stepped out of the shadows, revealing a thin, chiseled face marked by a cruel smile. My heart raced, I recognized him. It was Marcus, an insidious energy emanating from him, a past wrapped in shadows and secrets. I see the party has become quite lively, he purred, his gaze fixated on Ralph as if he were the only thing that mattered. But let us not forget the real stakes here. My blood ran cold, pieces of memories surfacing, old wounds that I had buried deep. What do you want, Marcus? Ralph replied, spine straightening, determination surging, but I could sense the tremors beneath his bravado. Only to remind you that the game is far from over, he said, the tone of his voice a smooth yet poisonous whisper that sent shivers down my spine. A chill filled the air, a foreboding echo of dread. As my heart raced, I couldn't shake the understanding that this was only the beginning. Battle lines drew thick, and we stood precariously on the edge of a cliff, our safety webs unraveling. What do you mean? Ralph asked, uncertainty threading his tone. Marcus smirked, a taunting glint in his eyes. Oh, you'll see. Soon enough. The truth always has a way of coming out. And with that cryptic statement, he retreated into the crowd, leaving an icy silence in his wake, thick with tension and unresolved questions. As the music around us faded back in, I felt a suffocating fear closing in. What truths lurked beyond the curtain of deception? Just when I believed we might forge a path toward liberation, we were shadows of doubt and looming threats edging closer. Ralph, I whispered, dread pooling in my stomach. What did he mean? But the question hung in the air, unanswered, as uncertainty settled in like ominous clouds shadowing a long-gone sun. The delicate dance between hope and despair captured in a single moment, I realized we were teetering on a razor's edge, a storm brewing just out of sight. The shimmer of sequins and crystal chandeliers felt increasingly oppressive, each twinkle mocking the fragile hope I had clung to just moments ago. As Marcus slipped back into the crowd, a familiar dread roiled within me, heavy and unyielding. I caught Ralph's eye, and in that fleeting glance, I saw a reflection of my own turmoil, fear, confusion, and a desperate need for clarity. "What do you think he meant?" I pressed, unable to keep my voice steady. The words felt like fragile glass, ready to shatter under the weight of uncertainty. Ralph pulled me aside, his brow furrowed, battling the shadows that lingered in his mind. "I don't know, but it can't be good. He's always been good at playing mind games." The fleeting hope from moments prior flickered like a dying candle, threatening to plunge us back into darkness. That I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see Marcus lurking, but he had woven himself back into the crowd, his smile a haunting echo of malice. The tense silence stretched between us, only interrupted by the muted clinks of glasses and light-hearted laughter, a stark contrast to the emotional maelstrom we were navigating. "I need to talk to my mother," Ralph said, his voice turning resolute. It was a slow exhale ramping up to a deep breath before he decided on a course of action. "I don't think that's a good idea," I warned, concerned. "She's already on edge, and if there's a chance Marcus knows something?" His eyes blazed with urgency. "I can't let this go without facing it. Whatever he means, I need to find out." With his fervor igniting a spark within me, I nodded, albeit reluctantly. I followed closely as Ralph strode through the crowd, each step a testament to the weight of decisions that hovered like a sword above us. Our strides carried a rhythm of determination, but I could feel the uncertainty tugging at both our hearts. Ralph's mother was across the room, her presence commanding, even from a distance. She was engrossed in conversation, her laughter pleasant yet hollow, exuding a veneer of social grace that had clearly taken years to hone. Ralph's hand curled into a fist at his side, the tension radiating off him palpable. "Wait here," he murmured just before approaching her, his face a mask of resolve as he steeled himself for the confrontation that awaited. As I watched Ralph engage, I felt the swell of both pride and fear. I wanted to believe he would emerge victorious, armed with truth. But I couldn't dismiss the worry that Marcus had planted, like weeds among tender seedlings. That I stood on the fringes of the gathering, doing my best to appear nonchalant as I listened. Their words were muffled, but I caught snippets of Ralph's direct questioning, his voice clear against the backdrop of laughter and music. "Mom, what does Marcus know? What is he hiding?" Her laughter faltered, the smile dropping as tension tightened the air around them. "He's just trying to stir trouble, Ralph. Don't give him the satisfaction." "But he said the game is not over." "What does that mean?" His voice grew more insistent, a rising tide pushing against her wave of denial. The silence that followed felt overwhelming, festering with unspoken truths. I edged closer, straining to hear, instinctively aware that the answers Ralph sought might be the very things that could fracture them irreparably. "Marcus isn't someone to take lightly," she finally began, her voice a trembling thread. "We have a past, and he knows things about our family. But you shouldn't let his words dictate your path, Ralph. You're better than that." In that moment, the room around me warped as I grappled with the implications of her words. Fear and hope intermingled, each breath I took heavy with the weight of possibility. Yet there was something more in her tone, a hint of a connection deeper than animosity, that underlying current whispered of secrets set to unravel. "What do you mean, Mom?" Ralph pressed. "What does he know?" A shadow crossed her face, and I felt it in my bones. Truth was a double-edged sword, and revealing it could ignite the very chaos Ralph had been bracing against. "Please, Ralph," she implored, vulnerability creeping into her voice. "It's complicated." As Ralph's shoulders sagged under the force of her admission, I could sense the tremor of doubt creeping back in. The crowd around us ebbed and flowed, laughter ringing out like distant thunder while we stood on the brink of an emotional storm. Complicated? What does that even mean? Ralph's urgency surged, but there was an unmistakable quaver. He was grasping for answers, and the elusive truth remained agonizingly out of reach. Before she could respond, a hand rested on my shoulder, causing a jolt of panic to ripple through me. I turned to see Thomas behind me, his expression a mix of concern and understanding. "You shouldn't be alone right now. This is a volatile situation. Did you overhear?" I asked, my fear mingling with a flicker of hope that Thomas could provide clarity. "Enough to know there are deeper layers here than you both realize," he replied thoughtfully, looking toward Ralph and his mother, who were now locked in a fierce whisper. "What we sometimes seek can be wrapped in chaos, and challenges often hold the key to liberation." But just as he spoke, a sudden commotion rippled through the crowd again, interrupting the fragment of hope illuminating the darkness. My attention whipped back to Ralph. He had walked toward his mother, his expression morphing from anger into visible dread as she recoiled as if his words had struck her like lightning. "Why did you lie?" Ralph's voice cracked, raw and unsure. "What are you afraid of?" As I grasped at the fraying ends of hope, a soft gasp drew my attention to Marcus re-emerging from the crowd, a twisted smile creeping across his face as he witnessed the family confrontation unfold. My heart raced as I realized the danger was no longer looming. It had arrived, a fire waiting for a single spark to ignite chaos. In that moment, a realization hit me hard. As the weight of the truth hovered just out of reach, I knew we were no longer just battling the expectations of family but confronting shadows that refused to stay buried. The storm was upon us, ready to unleash a deluge of revelations that could reshape our lives forever, and as Ralph faced the crumbling walls of his mother's facade, the dreadful question loomed: what truth would emerge, and at what cost? The air thickened as Ralph's voice shook the brittle atmosphere, each word a tremor that coursed through the crowd. "What are you afraid of, Mom?" The challenge hung in the room, heavy like thunderclouds before a storm. My pulse quickened, every nerve ending alive with anticipation. Marcus watched intently, his smirk growing wider, savoring the raw vulnerability unfolding before him. I felt a sickness rise in my stomach, the realization dawning that his presence was not merely that of a bystander. He relished the chaos, and I could almost see the gears turning in his mind as he anticipated how much he could extract from this fracture. But next to me, Thomas shifted, his brow furrowed in contemplation. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" he murmured, barely audible over the jumble of voices that surrounded us. I glanced at him, a desperate plea in my eyes, searching for a lifeline amid the storm brewing with Ralph and his mother. "Sometimes the conflicts we avoid reveal the most vital truths," he continued, his voice steady yet earnest. "What might seem like destruction can lead to a rebirth if only we dare to face it." I didn't know whether to cling to his words as hope or a warning. The unfolding drama, though wrought with pain, felt inevitable and perhaps necessary. Ralph's voice broke through again, laced with a tempest of emotions. "It's not just about you. It's about us, the life we've built, the lies that threaten to bury it. Doesn't that matter at all?" The tension was tangible, electric, charging through the air until it seemed it might explode. His mother's lip trembled, and I caught a glimpse of the woman behind the facade of grace. Beneath the polished exterior lay scars birthed from a past that was anything but simple, a haunting I could feel in my bones. "Ralph, please. I never wanted you to find out this way," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "Then tell me. What does Marcus want?" he pressed, desperation and betrayal twisting his features into something almost unrecognizable. Before she could respond, the music shifted, the lively tune suddenly fading, replaced by something softer yet melancholic. It wove through the air like the gentle touch of a memory, providing an unexpected backdrop to the storm. In the midst of their confrontation, a sliver of connection was etched out, albeit tenuously. "Maybe it's not just about Marcus," I whispered to Thomas, eyes glued to the scene. "It's about what happens when a family can no longer hide from its past." He nodded, the weight of my observation evident in the solemnity of his gaze. "Truth can be liberating, but it's also devastating. There's a fine line between healing and destruction." As if the universe was amplifying the tension, Ralph's mother finally spoke, her voice barely audible but powerful enough to hold the room captive. "He knows about your father, about what happened back then." A gasp moved through the few nearby people, and I could see Ralph freeze as confusion and anger warred on his face. What does that even mean? He asked, his voice rising, desperate for understanding. What about my father? 1,000 words danced in the air between them, but the truth remained locked away like a fragile secret, tormenting and teasing, taunting them both to confront the shadows. Ralph's eyes glistened, shimmering with unshed tears. Was it grief, anger, confusion? Or all three? And then came a moment that left me reeling. Marcus, leaning casually against a nearby pillar, called out, his voice cutting through our turmoil like a knife. Maybe I can help with that, Ralph. The truth always comes with a price. My heart raced, fear simmering at the thought of what he might reveal. I felt as if I were suspended on the precipice of a cliff, peering into the dark void below, unsure of what awaited me on the other side. Ralph turned, fury and uncertainty battling within him, the desperation of a son who had once adored his father facing revelation. Stay out of this, Marcus. Oh, but I think you want to hear what I have to say, Marcus taunted, his eyes gleaming with malicious delight. Your father's past is entwined with my family in ways you can't imagine. Ralph visibly recoiled, the weight of the moment threatening to crush him. I could feel a deep ache in my chest, the burden of the unknown hanging above us, casting a long shadow over the fragile hope that had begun to flicker back to life. The moment stretched, an electric pulse holding us suspended in place until it snapped. Just say it. Ralph shouted, the words spilling over with the force of weeks of confinement. Tell me everything. Words that could rewrite the very fabric of his existence dangled tantalizingly in front of him, caught between the desire for truth and the certainty of the turmoil it would unleash. And in that moment, with half the room fixated on Ralph and the other half on Marcus, my heart plummeted as I realized one undeniable truth: our lives would never be the same, no matter what Marcus chose to unveil. I took a deep breath, the air thick with impending revelations, and braced myself for the tidal wave that was about to crash over us. The reckoning would come, and as hope flickered in the chaos, the questions rose: would we be swept away, or would we find strength in the unraveling? The air crackled with anticipation, swirling around us like a tempest poised to unleash its fury. I stood on the sidelines, feeling the weight of reality pressing down. Ralph's moment was approaching, and with it, the fabric of his entire existence was about to be rethreaded, or perhaps, severed altogether. Your father, Marcus began, a gleam in his eyes like a predator savoring its power over its prey, wasn't just any man. His voice dripped with condescension, and I could see Ralph's fists clenching at his sides, every fiber of his being desperate to control the maelstrom within. He was, well, let us say, involved in more than just family business. Let's just say, his legacy is intertwined with some dark dealings. And I know what you've been left in the dark about. Stop! Ralph roared, desperation fueling his voice as he took a step toward Marcus, pure raw emotion flickering behind his eyes. You think this is a joke? You think you can just toy with me? Toy with you? The sardonic smile on Marcus's face deepened, relishing every moment of Ralph's turmoil. I'm merely providing clarity. Clarity, Ralph. That's what you wanted, isn't it? The truth always comes at a price. He leaned forward, edging closer, each word crafted for chaos. Your father's decisions turned our families into enemies, and now that's a legacy you have to bear. My heart sank at the palpable tension surging between Ralph and Marcus, a dance on a knife's edge. I wanted to charge forward, to shield Ralph from Marcus's venomous words, but I knew that Ralph had to confront this on his terms. Anguish flickered across Ralph's face, the shadows of his past were closing in, threatening to engulf everything he had fought to build. His mother stood a few feet away, paralyzed, caught between disbelief and the burden of her own omissions. Ralph, you don't have to listen to him, she said softly, but her voice trembled with the weight of unspoken regrets. The barrier of familial bonds was crumbling, revealing the truths we had all feared to face. Why didn't you tell me? Ralph's voice cracked, emotion wrapping around the words as they fell heavy in the air. Why didn't you protect me from this? Her gaze dropped to the ground, burdened by guilt that transcended the moment. I didn't want you to become entangled in the darkness that surrounded your father. I thought protecting you from the truth was protecting you, Ralph. Protecting me? Ralph's voice raised an octave, layering anger atop pain. You think hiding the truth is protection? You think that by keeping me in the dark, you were saving me from my own legacy? This is who I am. I could feel the gravity of Ralph's words, how the walls around him constricted, forcing him to confront not only his family's shame but the silent inheritance of regret and betrayal that had seeped into his very being. The tension surged as Marcus stepped closer, his expression inscrutable. Honestly, Ralph, you think your mother's deception was for your benefit? When the truth reveals itself, don't say I didn't warn you. Ralph's intense gaze shifted to Marcus, and in that moment, I saw clarity behind the storm. You think you can control me with secrets? You've underestimated what I'm willing to fight for. There was a shift, an awakening, the raw bare bones of his spirit rising to meet the chaos. You're right about one thing, though this was never just about me or this family. It's about all of us, about love and trust. Feeding off that burst of spirit, I stepped forward, my heart pounding in sync with the monumental revelation that crackled in the air. Marcus, go on. Finish what you started. The shouts of chaos cascaded through the crowd as I grasped the truth. There is no love without risk, and we're willing to face it, not just for Ralph, but for our future too. Marcus's triumphant grin faltered, a flicker of doubt creeping into his eyes. Oh, I'm not finished. Not by a long shot. He leaned back, awareness shifting, waiting for the harmony of despair to finish playing out. The truth is, you all will have to decide how best to rewrite history. History is written by the brave, Ralph said, courage coursing through him, pushing against the encroaching darkness. And you don't get to determine who I am. A breath hung heavy in the air, moments fracturing and stitching together the past as Ralph's mother stepped forward, her voice trembling yet resolute. Ralph, my son, it is time to confront what has held us hostage. Our family's legacy is ours to redefine. The collective breath of the gala drew in tightly, and in that seconds-long pause, silence like a sacred promise rang throughout the room. Marcus chuckled, a twisted sound that mingled with the security of the moment, a stark reminder of how fragile resolve can feel. You really think this moment will change anything? But as those words fell, Ralph reached out, his hand grasping mine tightly. It already has, he whispered, the burden of vulnerability melding into the warm strength of reassurance. We would face whatever came next together. What I didn't anticipate was the clarity in Ralph's eyes, as if he had stripped away the layers of noise, revealing the beating heart of our truth. Emotions washed over us, a riot of hope and fear, yet stronger than either. And with that strength gathered, the storm finally broke. That it was in that moment, as revelations poured forth and tears flowed freely, I found the incredible realization that we all had the power to rewrite our stories, both the damned and the beautiful, the truth and its complexities. The crowd ebbed and flowed around us, laughter and warmth beginning to blend into a sacred dance of solidarity. In those defining seconds, a continuous bond sparked anew, igniting a fire of forgiveness. This was our choice, a chance to embrace the wild storm brewing ahead. I turned to Ralph, fierce determination igniting within me, standing shoulder to shoulder, our souls entwined in a thread stronger than blood, one that love would forever strengthen. And without a moment's hesitation, I whispered, together. Then, with hearts wide open and eyes trained on the horizon where shadows dared to retreat, a singular truth emerged: our love was worth every shadow, and through the chaos, we would unite to illuminate our own future, defined not by our past but by the fierce love we dared to defend. In that moment, I understood that while storms may rage, the brightest dawn is saved for those bold enough to seek it through the storm. And as the echoes of laughter replaced the whispers of secrets, our story, the raw, beautiful, messy tapestry, was ours to write, one dance at a time, stepping into the light, hand in hand. And with that, the final piece settled like a key turning in the lock, marking the beginning of our true legacy, not one of shame, but one forged in love and courage, a gleaming testament to what it means to be truly seen.